Greetings. Today we'll talk about the importance of color across cultures, especially with the focus on branding and web design. Research has shown that up to 90% of people may perceive color as the leading indicator behind their choice of whether they trust or not a website and therefore a brand. So my goal today is to show you how color can actually mean so many different things. And let's take, for example, the color red, right? So here we are, this website in which I have summarized my findings. And what do you think of red? Depending where you're from and what your upbringing is, it'll mean different things. Let's assume that for the sake of this conversation, you're from somewhere in the West, France, the United States. Red to you may mean Christmas or Valentine's Day. If you're more religious, it could mean the Passions of the Christ. But if you're from the Far East, such as China, which is basically the most populous country in the world, red can mean to you prosperity. Red is a color that saturates really the palette of China in advertising and overall events such as the Lunar New Year. But then you may be from India, right? Red there actually means spirituality and sensuality. It's actually the color that's used for the bride's dress when she gets married. So we already have uncovered the importance of color and how it can mean different things for different people. But what if you were to ignore it? So here's some famous blunders when it comes to now choosing the right color. One of the most renowned companies in the world, the logistics company UPS, is known to us as this big brown, truck that goes around delivering parcels. Founded in 1916, the idea was that it would model after the Pullman railroad cars to symbolize efficiency. But when they moved into Spain, they had this issue with the trucks because the hearses in Spain are usually of a brown tint. Therefore, this reminded people of hearses, which is not a nice connotation when it comes to getting some packages delivered. And as a result, they had to change that. And they also had some issues in Germany as well because the Nazis back in the day used to wear brown color uniforms. And after they were all said and done, it was decided that brown color shirts are just cultural taboo and in a sense prohibited. So they had to adapt in that regard as well. Now let's go further into a case of Pepsodent, a company that makes toothpaste, right? So generally speaking, in the West, most parts of the world, you may like having white teeth, right? But that's not the case across the world. So if you go to places like Vietnam, actually blackened teeth is something that you do want to have because it symbolizes certain status that comes with the consumption of betel nuts, right? You chew on them and then they leave this black residue. And that's looked at fondly, right? So you have to be aware of layers of culture when it comes to promoting a product and the colors that you're promoting. You're promoting whiteness with your toothpaste. Well, where are you promoting it, right? And these are just two of the many case studies that I have compiled. And you can get this guide, just check out in the description. But the point here being is that be aware of your brand. So another case in which you've seen brands adapt is McDonald's. It's pretty clear to us that when you look at the Indian version, you have a lot of yellow, a lot of vibrant colors. Red is really present. So is white. I mean, it's really on brand. But you don't really see any green. So it's yellow, white, red, right? But go to Sweden, right? So this is just one of the images over here. But you can see that red is very, very minimal. And the reason being is that they're aspiring for having more white, green, and yellow, which gives off a vibe of eco-conscious, right, and sustainability. So the point here being is that, brands adapt, and they just adapt depending on the context, and so can you. So I wanted to touch on the color blue for one reason. It's that it's so universally liked, right? According to research, it's like the most liked brand color overall. And the thing is that, you have also shades of blue to consider. And there is different cultural implications, as the theme has been for this particular talk, right? So let's pick Germany. So apparently back in the Middle Ages, when we had the typewriters or the print presses rather, we used the color blue, or they used the color blue to create a more permanent color, and they had to let it sit for a day in order to oxidize. So they actually took the day off, the print makers, right, the print writers, and they used to have an expression that still stands to today. It's called making blue, which is kind of playing hooky, or kind of maybe not showing up to work. And because they got drunk, there's also that expression associated with getting drunk. So therefore, you look at this one color that associates with this fabric of meanings, right? And if you go to Russia, there is a very distinct difference between the color, blue and sky blue. Sky blue being associated with, like gay men. So as a result, that is something you need to consider if you were to be catering to Russian men and Russians in general, probably. It's also spiritual color in the East, particularly in Hinduism. Krishna is usually portrayed with the color blue to indicate an infinite realm, right? So it's a very spiritual color, and as a result associated with divinity. Now, if you go to France, it's part of the French flag, right? But, it also has this regional meaning. And a great example that I found in this case study is that if you look at the Gaulois cigarettes, they have this really nice cornflower blue. And incidentally, parking meter maids are looked at as a nuisance because people would get a lot of parking tickets. But they also have the same color of outfit as the Gaulois cigarettes. So that particular connotation exists in the society. And, lastly, as I said earlier, it's so popular as a color, right? And you can see it overall in websites associated with banking, psychology, even chatting and dialogues like chatbots. And the point here being is that while it is really widely popular, it is also a bit exhausted, right? Doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means that you have to use it with caution as you try to stand out. And, if you end up not liking it, of course you choose another color. So what if we, put it all together? How do we then go into using the right colors? What are the tools that I would recommend? So I would like to introduce to you some tools that you could use into your design thinking process, right? So you need a system, ultimately, right? And if you consider color as a fundamental aspect of your design approach, then you need a way of curating colors. And this is why I made copymeow.com, which at the moment helps you just pick palettes out of websites you really like. So these are some examples of websites I've been interacting with and I really like. And here are my curated palettes that are segmented by feeling they evoke, right? Because ultimately you should start with the end in mind, being the feelings you want to evoke as a brand rather than the colors you want to use. Because if you think of the world of color as feelings, then you would be able to relate to people much more easily, right? Whereas, for example, when you look at a website such as colorhunt.co, really helpful and really popular, you are mostly fascinated by the colors and sometimes maybe falling wayward of the different meanings that they can hold, right? But, you can cultivate it as you go. And I really recommend you check out both this and copymeow.com and check out, for example, winter. It gives this sense of blue and drowsiness, right? Really nice curation over here. So to wrap up, we have a three-step approach for designing a website based on color. First, you have to drill it in your head. Color is a language, right? Changes across borders. Secondly, you want to zone in into your target audience, right? It goes both by culture and by age and other demographics. Finally, once you nail that, you want to design for the feeling you want to evoke to those people, right? Be it energy, happiness, whatever it is. That's the three-step approach. From there on, there are plenty of tools to pick from. All you need right now is a framework. Thank you for watching.